I'm Steve Sellers, the morning host at 86 KONO, the greatest hits of the 60s and 70s in San Antonio, Texas. And we got a special guest today. Not only an artist that here in San Antonio we think of as our own, but he's an artist that really belongs not only to the nation, but the world, and that's Sunny Ozuna. Sunny, thank you so much for coming to see us today.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure being here with you today.
This is really fun for me because I saw you recently in the Love Jam concert here in San Antonio at the Alamo Dome, yourself and a bunch of other artists. It was just absolutely flawless. And when you came out in your white hat and your red coat, people just went crazy for you. You know, and you started, we're going to talk about this, you started in high school, or maybe before, writing, is that right?
That's right. The year was 1963 when I actually graduated out of Burbank High School, but even then, in those few beginning years as I first came out of high school, I really had this need to write. So I actually started writing right out of high school.
Yeah, and you were at a time when rock and roll was so strong. And there were a lot of stories of local artists making big. And I'll tell you real quick one of my stories, if you'll forgive me. But I remember being a teenager listening to the radio out in the boondocks, listening to San Antonio radio, and hearing that guys like you in San Antonio were making it on American Bandstand. You were an inspiration to everybody because you were doing what so many people wanted to do. I mean, that had to be kind of unreal for you too, right?
And both of us being teenagers, it kind of meant a little something special to us, right?
Oh, it absolutely did. And the people that you touch with your music through the radio that you find out, you know, in later life, that's got to be great. Here's what I want to ask you. You told a story at the Love Jam. You're in Burbank High School. You write a song called Talk to Me. I mean, you're listening to all of these songs on Kono on the radio, just like the rest of us, except you're writing songs. First of all, how did you get the song published and how did you get it recorded?
Okay, well, the song, actually, the song belonged to Joe Seneca out of St. Paul, Minnesota. But I had picked it up growing up at some of the little places where I started to play. It was recorded back, I think, something like 7-8 years before my time by Little Willie John.
Yes, okay.
And you guys used to play it a lot.
That's right.
Back in those days.
Song,
yeah. And so I picked it up, and it was just one of those things that stuck with me as I little by little got going into the music business, and like every young man wanted to get to of course, the only goal you see at the time is getting into the first recording studio to do your first recording. That song came back to me. I wanted to record that particular one. I was already writing other songs that I had a little faith in that I thought were my songs and had good potential. But Talk to Me kept really nudging at me. I'm glad I listened. I'm glad you did too. Now, so you want to record this song. Who do you find in San Antonio in the early 60s do you go, hi, I want to record a song? Well, there was a gentleman named Jeff Smith at Texas Sound here in San Antonio. Very small recording studio. We're talking 4-channel, 5-channel, 6-channel studio. But that was, believe it or not, that was state of the art for us. So we went in there and we actually recorded Talk to Me in there. I believe it was on St. Pedro Street at the time when we were real young. And we recorded our first session there at Texas Sound here locally. That had to be a thrill to be in a recording studio. At that age, yes, very nerve-wracking because we were, young and just anxious with wanting to do this. And we got her done, though. We got her done. Before you were recording, what were you doing? You were playing dances? You were playing parties? What were you doing? I was basically just, I was in my senior year coming out of Burbank High School, so I was basically just doing what we call record hops. Remember the record hops? Yes, sir. Big deal for us. Big deal. Yeah. And so we do record hops and do the little talent shows at some of the school festivals, and that was it. Yeah. All right. So there came a moment, though, you're at Burbank High School. I think you were a senior, and so Talk to Me goes to number 1, right? Right. And you're in high school. And I'm in high school. And Dick Clark calls, and you
This is crazy. I remember wanting to get off school for a field trip, but I never had to go to the principal and ask if I could get off from school to be on American Bandstand, but you did, right?
I sure did. And I had a real strict principal at the time. Oh gosh, I can never forget this. And I mean, so stern that he wasn't given. The word was he was not going to give anybody half a credit, mind you. I went in there and I pleaded with this guy. Look, I took the trade magazines, Billboard, and Cashbox, and I said, this is what I'm doing and this is where I'm going. And I painted such a nice picture. He gave me 3.5 credits so I could get out with my class.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it was just an experience for me.
What happened on that? I'd like to know the experience of that first time you go to, I guess you went to Philadelphia.
I did.
Tell me about the first experience going to Philadelphia and being on American Bandstand.
Well, I'll tell you my first shock. My first shock is that I thought Dick Clark, never knowing Dick Clark, thought he was just average size, tall gentleman because of the way he stood up there on that podium with the products that he was working on, right? And so I always looked at him on TV like every other teenager. He just must be a tall guy. He was shorter than I was.
Really?
He was shorter than I was. And the way the place looked packed all the time with the kids and how it would always look so exciting is they put some tape in the corner and the 2 cameras were working in this little bitty corner. So it looked like it was a lot of kids, but they were just packed into this little corner. And then they would tape 2 shows in one shooting by giving them 30, 45 minutes in between. They would change clothes among themselves so they'd look a little bit different, and they would do 2 shows at one time. So all that was really exciting, but the idea that Dick Clark was a little shorter was really something for me.
Well, what was it like going in and preparing to perform on American Bandstand?
I don't think it was all that the preparing was that Huey Moe, which was my manager at the time, that actually went up there with me at the time, had already had 3 or 4 record hops that I had to do earlier in the day before we did that. So I was kind of a little bit in the swing of already doing it. So I kind of went real casual into it, thank God.
That's amazing. Tell me some of the songs that you wrote that you're especially proud of.
Okay. I wrote a song back in day one called Just a Moment. I wrote one called Golly Gee, Smile Now, Cry Later, Put Me in Jail. And then, of course, Talk to Me was the biggest one that we had. And then about every year and a half or so, we needed to always have an album, and known at the time as albums. We need to have one that was a little bit on fire, so it would keep us always on top of our not only of our craft, but out there working all the time. So here I am, 96 different productions later, and this is my 53rd year that I'm actually still in the music.
Man, that is awesome. I want to ask you about the recording of Talk to Me.
Okay.
There's a repeating string part that repeats instrumentally what you're doing vocally, because you go talk to me and it goes da 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 da. It sounds kind of like it always sounded like I'm in a burlesque house to me. Those strings they just have their own sound. How did you guys get the string sound?
Manuel Guerra, the drummer who was running the group at the time, had a buddy of his. His name was Luis Alcaraz. It turns out that Luis was wound up in his career being the first gentleman to ever be able to adapt the violin to jazz music. But he was that good. But they were buddies, and Manuel called on Luis to do the arrangement for Talk to Me, and we actually went in the studio on a 4-track machine and did the whole recording with Luis and all this. Luis brought in 2 more of his buddies, and between the 3 strings, we did all the Talk to Me string section.
Dick Clark thought you had a unique sound with the Talk to Me and the Put Me in Jail records, right?
That's right. To him, he was really excited about the fact that it seemed to fit when at the space of time that the songs were released. Like I really had planned extra hard for that particular space of time.
and that's when you tell Dick Clark, yes, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, you're right.
Boy, we worked hard.
I wasn't going to go there.
What was life like in the early 1960s at Burbank High School?
Exciting. exciting because you can imagine, I was feeling like I was becoming an artist, yet I'm going and unfolding my own teenage life because I went to the record hops and I went to the football games and everything that they were doing, I was doing. But at the same time, to be able to perform and enjoy that end of it too, it was really exciting. And it kind of unfolded nice with my education and things. So
You're on the charts, but you still got to go to biology class like everybody else.
Like everybody, and PE and everything else.
If the coach says run the bleachers, you got to go run the bleachers.
You got to run the bleachers, yeah, for sure.
What was it like coming back home to Burbank High School after being on American Bandstand?
Now, this is something. Of course, like every rock and roll artist at the time, I thought the whole city of San Antonio was going to be waiting for me at the airport. Did not happen. I thought in the first couple of jobs, everybody's going to be really excited. I had seen the week before of Dick Clark's American Bandstand before I went up, so you can imagine the feeling, just anxiously wanting to get home. Well, it turns out that the week that I filmed Dick Clark's American Bandstand was the last time that it was going to be shown in San Antonio. So San Antonio didn't see it until later when they do those at the end of the year countdown thing at the end of the year, and that's when of course there was proof that I was on there. But I remember making a stop in at the airport in Dallas coming back in, and I sat down in one of those chairs you put the quarter to watch TV.
Yes.
And I said, it's gonna come on, and that's when they announced, last week was the last time they were gonna do Dick Clark. So we got a new program here today. And I said, oh my God, there goes my shot.
How did that not break your heart?
It did. But just the idea that for the next 4 or 5 years, at the end of the year, it kept coming up. So they knew that I had actually done the whole thing, and they saw the program that particular week. It just didn't get to where they could see it more regular.
So we fast forward through 52, 53 years in the music business.
Right.
I've just seen you perform recently. Tell us about your career now.
Okay. Now, God is good. God is good. I have 2 motion pictures. I have a Grammy Award. I have 96 different productions. I do 5 different genres of music. The oldies only being one of them. And my record company is still flourishing. We are still traveling. After all these years, I've got a full orchestra that I perform with. I'm excited because my latest thing, I think it's been like 4.5 months, I did a sold-out performance in El Paso, where you'll never guess with who. Chubby Checker.
Oh, is
Chubby
that right?
Checker and myself, we sold out the building, and I thought, this had to be the highlight. You can imagine how big Chubby Checker came to be all over the world.
Oh, yeah. I've talked to him, too, and Dick Clark was his friend. I know that you know this. His Dick Clark's wife at the time gave Chubby Checker his stage name, because she used to make a joke, and I'm sorry I'm not remembering his real name right now, but she used to make a joke. She'd say, "You're not a fat domino, you're a chubby checker." And Dick Clark said "Thank you, Mrs. Clark," and Chubby Checker became Chubby Checker.
Wow.
And he's still out there.
Wow.
I have a theory. I want to see what you think about this theory. The music from the 60s and 70s is unique. It has heart. It has soul. It was handcrafted. Why do you think it's still alive today?
I think it's and one more thing that you could add on there is that it's been tried to be imitated over and over and over, and it just will not happen. It was a space and time to me. The way I look at it, it was meant for those people at that time for a full enjoyment of everything that it had to offer. It just cannot be duplicated. It's just the melodies were there, the words were saying what we wanted, what we felt, what we wanted to say, how we felt. Everything was just perfect. Everything. The artists were doing a fantastic job of doing their work in the recording studio. The musicians were great. I mean, everything was just like perfect.
Let me ask you about another theory I have. We used to hear a song on the radio. We'd hear "Talk to Me" before we went to school in the morning on 86 KONO. We'd go to school and we'd say, "Did you hear that song by Sunny Ozuna? You know, he's from San Antonio, and he's got this great song called Talk to Me. Did you hear it?" "No, I didn't hear it." "Well, maybe they'll play it this afternoon." So later in the afternoon, you're driving around in your car with your friend. Talk to Me by Sunny Ozuna comes on, and you go, "Wow, there it is, there it is." There is something magical about that. Now, there's lots of ways to get music now, but when the radio was the main way we got our music, don't you think there was something special about that it wasn't instant gratification?
Very, very special. We depended on the radio more than we could ever dream of. If it wasn't for American Bandstand sticking out in our minds as teenagers, I don't think we would. I'm sure there was Happy Days and some of the other ones that stick out a little bit. But our main thing, I agree with you. I think for us, our main thing was radio. And we were stuck with like glue on Kono. You know we were. Yeah. We all were.
Okay, one final question. This is something somebody brought up, and I don't know if I read it somewhere or maybe heard you say. I think I saw it actually on a documentary on YouTube. You always sort of had your own genre of rock and roll that you wrote and that you played with your. I hope this is the right way to say it. You had Spanish roots that you loved, but you did not want to especially play Spanish music. You wanted to play rock and roll. That's what a documentary said. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
That's the way it was because we had enough problems. We weren't pushed on the English language very much at home. So we basically grew up as little kids using broken up Spanish because we didn't even speak it fluently either. I don't know if you know that. So it's broken up. But when we got to school, we already had enough problem having to deal with English. So when the idea came up of adding some lyrics and starting to make these changes, gosh, you can imagine it was going to be a major change for us. So no, I wasn't too happy about it. But I mean, I'm glad I listened and we were able to adapt. But I wasn't all that really hot to go with it because as teenagers we were dealing with all the English market and we saw what the English artists were doing like you guys were doing growing up, and that's what we wanted to do.
And you wanted to play rock and roll.
That's it. We wanted to play rock and roll.
One final question. Tell me history of Sunglows, Sunliners, the two different.
The two differences. I come from my story is that I always tell on radio and all my interviews, I come from the and the generation. So it was Little Anthony and the everything was and the. So we wanted to be on and the. And so and so we're on our very first job to play in Houston. Oh, excited, my goodness. Young kids, couldn't get to Houston fast enough. Our very first job. And on the side of the road, I saw a big old sign of those big ones that used to have the cigarette commercials on the side of the road. It said Sunglow Feed Company, food for animals. And I said, look, here it is. My nickname at this time, I've never told you, was Bunny. Because I was really light complected when I was first born. They didn't even think I belonged to that family.
Yeah. But where did he come from?
Bunny. So Bunny and the Sunglows was not going to happen. So, and I said, well, what do we do now? Well, the sun for Sunglows starts with an S. What if we just drop the B and put an S and go with Sunny and the Sunglows? So I did Sunny and the Sunglows for about 2 years because it was in my senior year. And a major company wanted to pick me up, thought that I was just going to get up and go and forget the group. And I said, look, guys, that's not the plan. We're making a little noise. Let's really work hard and let's do it. They didn't buy it. So I said, okay, well, you guys go ahead and do what you guys are doing, and I'm going to start another little group, and now I have no choice but to get something else going. I'll go with whatever alternative that I have. And so I went to Houston, pick up the little group and call it Sunliners. So that's the explanation between Sunny and the Sunglows. And then for the next 40, 50 years, we kept Sunny and the Sunliners.
Too bad alive. You guys couldn't stay together.
Yeah. It was really a nice group and nice guys, but, we were fresh out of high school, young kids, and we were just having a good old time.
Does it ever blow your mind? This is a final question. Does it ever blow your mind? I mean, I think of what I was like in high school. First of all, I can't think of anything that I did that I'm especially proud of. But when it comes to writing a song you wrote when you're 17 or 18, what does it feel like as an artist and as a person to have a creation that came from you when you're 17 or 18 years old that still has this amazing life today?
You know, it's a one of a kind feeling, only because if you're any kind of a writer, there's a little bit of a story behind it. The song that does that to me to this day is both "Put Me in Jail" and "Smile Not Cry Later." Now I'll explain I didn't go to jail or anything, so I can don't have too much there. But on the "Smile Now," it was kind of strange the way it came about, only because a young man being married for the first time, and she said, you know what I found about you as we're starting to know each other more and more, is that it's like you're like two people. He says, you're one person when you're with me, and when you're up on stage, you belong to all those people, and it's like I'm looking at a stranger. It's not you. I don't see you as you. It's something like "Smile now and cry later." And I said, oh my gosh, she had just given me a title, and didn't realize she was giving me the title, and that's where "Smile Not Cry Later" came from.
Smile for my friends and cry later. Yeah, smile for my friends and cry later.